The night was heavy with silence inside the Kane mansion. Chandeliers glittered above a dining table set for 20, but only one man sat there. Alexander Kane, the billionaire tycoon, staring at his untouched meal. The empire he built stretched across nations, yet his heart pounded with a weakness money couldn't cure. A burning pain shot through his chest, his hands trembling as he clutched his glass of wine. From the corner of the room, Elena, the widow maid, watched cautiously. She had lived in the shadows of this mansion, polishing silver and scrubbing marble floors while the family mocked her poverty. But tonight, something about Alexander felt different, fragile, almost human. Suddenly, his glass slipped, shattering against the floor. Alexander gasped, his powerful frame collapsing onto the table. Elena dropped her rag and ran forward, her instincts drowning out her fear. "Sir, hold on," she cried, lifting his head. His lips quivered, eyes glazing over. "They want me dead." Before she could ask who, the lights flickered. A shadow moved across the hallway mirror, swift, silent, deliberate. Elena's pulse thundered. Someone was inside. She grabbed Alexander's phone, dialing for help, but it slipped from her hands as she caught sight of the dark figure slipping into his private chambers. Her breath hitched. Who would dare move so freely inside the Kane mansion at night? Elena carefully lowered Alexander onto the sofa, torn between guarding him and following the intruder. She clutched a candlestick, her only weapon, and crept toward the doorway. Every creak of the marble floor echoed like a gunshot. When she reached the chamber, the door was ajar. Inside, faint moonlight spilled over Alexander's safe, its dial spinning, open. Documents scattered across the rug. Someone was rifling through his secrets. Elena stepped closer, heart in her throat. But before she could see the face, a hand shot out of the darkness, grabbing her wrist. Cold steel pressed against her neck. "Curiosity," a low voice whispered, "will get you killed." The screen fades to black. Who is the intruder, and why is Alexander's life worth killing for? If you are finding the story interesting, please subscribe and turn your notification bell on. The blade at Elena's throat gleamed under the pale moonlight. Her breath froze, her pulse pounding so loud it drowned every sound in the chamber. The intruder leaned close, cloaked in black, his face hidden beneath a hood. "Stay quiet," he hissed, "and maybe you'll live." But before he could strike, footsteps echoed in the corridor. A door slammed. The shadow released her, vanishing into the darkness like smoke. Elena staggered back, clutching her throat, gasping for air. She rushed to Alexander's side, but the billionaire had lost consciousness, his body cold and trembling. Panic surged through her veins. She tore through the scattered documents on the floor, until one page stopped her breath. It was a half-written will, with her name, Elena Rivera, scratched at the bottom as a beneficiary. Her fingers trembled. Why would Alexander include her, a mere maid, a widow with nothing in his will? Before she could process, the door burst open. Standing there was Richard Kane, Alexander's only son. His eyes narrowed as they fell on Elena, kneeling beside his father with papers in her hands. "What have you done?" Richard's voice was venomous. "You think you can crawl from your filthy widow's rags to steal from us?" Elena tried to speak. "No, it wasn't me. Someone else was here." But Richard seized her wrist, twisting it cruelly. "If my father dies tonight, maid, the world will know you killed him." His grip was iron, his words laced with fury. Elena's tears blurred her vision, but deep inside her, something hardened. She had lost her husband to greed years ago, buried her heart beneath servitude. But now she would not bow. "You're wrong," she whispered fiercely. "I'm the only one trying to save him." Richard smirked, shoving her aside as guards rushed in. "Keep her away from him," he ordered. "From this moment, she doesn't step near my father again." Elena's heart shattered, but her eyes burned with fire. She knew the truth. Alexander wasn't dying by fate, but by design, and she would uncover it, even if it cost her life. Later that night, as the mansion settled into silence, Elena sat alone in the maid's quarters. But the silence didn't last. A slip of paper slid under her door. She picked it up with shaking fingers. Scrawled across it were words that froze her blood. "They'll kill him at dawn. If you want him to live, meet me in the garden. Come alone." The screen cuts to black. Who sent the note, and can Elena trust them, or is it a trap? The night air was cold in the Kane mansion garden. Moonlight stretched across the roses, painting silver shadows on the ground. Elena clutched the mysterious note in her hand, her heart pounding as she stepped cautiously among the hedges. "Who's there?" she whispered, her voice trembling. A figure emerged from behind the fountain, face hidden beneath a scarf. In his hand, he held a folder. "If you want to save him, you need to see this." Elena hesitated, fear and curiosity warring inside her. Slowly, she took the folder. When she opened it, her breath caught. Inside were copies of Alexander Kane's will, drafts no one outside his office should have seen. And in every version, her name was listed. Her mind reeled. Why me? Why would a man of billions entrust anything to a maid with nothing? But before she could ask, the stranger leaned close. Alexander knew he was dying. He was preparing for war. Someone in that house wants him dead, and if they find out he trusted you... His words trailed into the wind. "They'll destroy you." A sharp noise split the night. A flashlight beam cut across the garden. "Guards!" Richard's voice thundered in the distance. "Find her! She's plotting against my father!" The stranger vanished into the shadows, leaving Elena clutching the folder. Panic surged. If they found her with these documents, she'd be condemned. She hid them under her maid's dress and slipped back toward the mansion. But fate had other plans. As she crept through the hallway, 2 guards seized her, dragging her to the grand staircase where Richard and his mother awaited. Richard snatched the folder from her trembling hands, flipping through the pages. His eyes darkened. "So it's true," he sneered. "Father meant to give you, a maid, a beggar widow, a share of his empire." The family gasped in fury, whispers echoing like daggers. Elena's protests were drowned out. Richard's mother, icy and elegant, raised her chin. "She's been seducing him, poisoning his mind, perhaps even his body." Gasps filled the hall. Elena shook her head violently. "No, someone else is hurting him. I swear it wasn't me." But her cries meant nothing. Richard held up a small glass vial, glinting under the chandelier. "Then explain this," he growled. "Found beneath your bed." The liquid inside shimmered dark red. Poison. The family closed in, eyes blazing with hatred. Elena's breath caught as Richard pointed at her like a judge sentencing death. "Lock her away. At dawn we'll hand her to the police. If father dies tonight, the world will know she murdered him." The screen fades to black. Is Elena being framed? Or has she been betrayed by someone she trusted? The dungeon beneath the Kane mansion was damp, cold, and suffocating. Chains rattled as the guards shoved Elena into the cell, the door slamming shut with a cruel echo. She clutched the iron bars, tears streaming down her face. Above her, the household celebrated in whispers, believing justice had been served. The billionaire's maid, accused of poisoning him, locked away like a criminal. But deep in Elena's heart, fury burned. She had endured mockery, insults, and poverty, but to be accused of murder when all she had done was protect him, it broke something inside her. Hours later, Richard appeared, smirking as he dangled the vial before her. "Tell me, maid," he taunted, "what price did they pay you? My father's rivals? Did they promise you freedom from your wretched life?" Elena shook her head, voice trembling yet defiant. "You don't see it, do you? The enemy isn't me. Someone in this house wants him dead. And you're too blind, or too greedy to notice." Richard's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second, then hardened. "You'll rot before anyone believes you." He turned to leave, but a sudden commotion echoed from upstairs. A servant rushed in, pale-faced. "Sir, it's your father. He's collapsing again." Richard's arrogance shattered. He sprinted away, leaving Elena alone in the dark. Her heart pounded. Alexander was dying, and she was powerless behind bars. Minutes dragged like hours until the sound of hurried footsteps returned. The dungeon door creaked open, and there stood Alexander's private physician, face grim. He slipped inside, glancing around nervously before unlocking her cell. "You're the only one he trusts," the doctor whispered. "If he dies tonight, the Kane Empire falls into the wrong hands. Come, quickly." Elena staggered to her feet, disbelief flooding her. "But they'll kill me if they see me near him again." "No time," the doctor snapped. "He asked for you by name. He said, 'Bring Elena.'" Elena's chest tightened. She followed the doctor through secret corridors, her footsteps echoing with dread and hope. At last, they reached Alexander's chambers. The billionaire lay pale and trembling, his breath shallow, his skin drenched in sweat. His eyes fluttered open just enough to see her. "Elena," his voice cracked like dry wood. "They're closing in. Trust no one." But before he could finish, his body convulsed violently. Doctors rushed in, shouting orders. Elena tried to step closer, but Richard blocked her path, his eyes blazing with rage. "This is your fault," he roared, pointing at her as guards dragged her back. "If my father dies, you'll hang for it," Elena screamed, fighting their grip, tears streaming. "I didn't do this. Please, someone is killing him." Alexander's hand reached weakly into the air, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "Elena, save me." Then his hand fell limp. The screen fades to black. Has Alexander Kane taken his final breath, or is this the beginning of an even deadlier game? The chamber erupted in chaos. Doctors pressed against Alexander's chest, fighting to keep him alive, while Richard's furious accusations thundered through the mansion. Guards dragged Elena down the corridor, her cries echoing against the marble walls. "Please," she screamed. "He's being poisoned. Can't you see?" But no one listened. To them, she was guilty, the poor widow who dared to dream beyond her place. Shackled in chains, she was thrown into a carriage at dawn, destined for the city prison. As the carriage rattled down the road, Elena's mind spun. She could almost feel Alexander's failing heartbeat in her chest. "If I don't reach him, he'll die. And I'll die branded a murderer." Suddenly, the carriage lurched to a violent stop. The horses neighed wildly. Shouts erupted outside, followed by steel clashing against steel. Elena's chains rattled as the door was ripped open. A masked man in black stepped inside. His voice was calm, deep, and chilling. "If you want to live, come with me." Before she could protest, he cut her chains and pulled her into the dawn mist. Together they sprinted through the forest, the sound of guards screaming behind them. His movements were precise, almost military. When they finally stopped, Elena fell to her knees, panting. She looked up into the eyes of her rescuer as he lowered his mask. Her breath caught. It was Victor Kane, Alexander's estranged brother, the man banished years ago for trying to seize the family fortune. "You," Elena whispered. "Why would you save me?" Victor's smile was cold. "Because your master's empire is already mine, and whether he lives or dies depends on you." Elena's blood ran cold. "You're behind this," she whispered, trembling. Victor stepped closer, his voice a venomous whisper. "The poison, the chaos, the betrayal, it all leads back to me. And now you must decide, maid. Save him, or watch him crumble. Either way, I win." Elena's chest heaved, rage burning behind her tears. But Victor wasn't finished. He tossed a folded paper at her feet, an old newspaper clipping of her late husband's death. Her breath caught. How did he know about that? Victor leaned close, his words cutting like a blade. "You think his death was an accident? You've been a pawn far longer than you realize." The screen fades to black. What dark secret ties Elena's past to the Kane Empire? and will she risk everything to expose it? The forest was still, but Elena's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Victor Kane's words echoed like poison in her mind. Her husband's death wasn't an accident. Could this monster be telling the truth? Victor circled her like a predator. I saved you from Richard's noose, maid, but understand, your life is mine now. You can walk away and let Alexander die, or you can stand with me and learn the truth about your husband. Elena's fists clenched. Every fiber of her soul screamed to reject him. Yet Alexander's pale, dying face burned in her memory. She swallowed her fear. If helping you means saving him, then I'll play your game. But betray me, and I swear, I'll kill you with my bare hands. Victor smirked, amused, fiery. No wonder my brother trusts you. He led her to a hidden safe house, where documents, photographs, and maps littered the walls. Names of Kane family board members were crossed out in red ink, as though they were pieces in his grand scheme. In the center, a single word was scrawled: ascendancy. What is this? Elena whispered. Victor's eyes gleamed. The end of Alexander's reign, and the birth of mine. Before she could respond, the sound of footsteps thundered outside. Victor cursed, yanking her into the shadows. Through the cracked door, Elena saw assassins dressed in black storming the safe house, blades drawn. They've found us, Victor growled. A fight erupted, steel flashing, men falling. Victor moved with brutal precision, but the assassins kept coming. Elena, heart racing, grabbed a fallen dagger and slashed at one attacker, saving Victor from a blade to the back. For a moment, their eyes locked, reluctant allies bound by survival. When the last assassin fell, Elena's hands trembled with blood on her skin. She had killed for the first time. Victor studied her with something like respect. You have more fight in you than I thought. But before relief could settle, one of the dying assassins gasped with his final breath. The son, Richard, sent us. Elena's blood turned cold. Richard Kane, Alexander's own son, had ordered her death. Victor's smile widened, dark and triumphant. Now you see the truth, maid. Your enemies aren't just mine. They're his blood. Elena staggered back, torn between terror and determination. If Richard was truly behind the assassins, then Alexander's danger wasn't just from the outside, it was within his own family. Victor leaned close, whispering like a devil at her ear. The question is, will you let him die for their greed, or will you fight beside me, knowing the cost? The screen fades to black. Will Elena risk trusting the devil she knows, or return to the mansion, knowing Richard wants her dead? The assassin's blood still stained Elena's trembling hands as she stumbled through the forest with Victor. Each step felt heavier than the last. She had sworn never to kill, but tonight survival had stolen that choice. Don't look so broken, Victor sneered, wiping his blade clean. That stain will never wash away, but it makes you stronger. Welcome to the game, Elena. She glared at him, fury and nausea clashing in her chest. I didn't kill to join your game. I did it to live, and to save Alexander. Victor chuckled darkly. Save him? He's already half dead. By the time you crawl back to that mansion, his own son will have finished him. The words cut deeper than any blade. Elena clenched her fists, her vow solidifying. No matter the cost, she would not let Alexander die. By nightfall, they slipped into the city hospital under false disguises. Elena's heart raced as they neared Alexander's guarded room. But just as she pushed inside, a scream tore from her throat. Alexander lay pale and motionless, his chest unmoving. Doctors surrounded him, frantically working. His pulse was fading. Clear! One of them shouted, pressing paddles to his chest. His body jolted. Elena shoved past the guards, falling to her knees beside him. Fight, Alexander, please, fight! Tears streaked down her face. Don't let them win. Suddenly, chaos erupted. One of the doctors slipped a syringe into his IV, too fast, too discreet. Elena's eyes caught the glint of liquid and instinct took over. She grabbed the doctor's wrist, wrenching the syringe away. It shattered against the floor, spilling a red toxin. Gasps filled the room. Poison! The false doctor lunged at her, blade flashing. Elena screamed, grappling with him. In the struggle, she plunged the blade into his chest. Blood sprayed, his body collapsing at her feet. The room froze. All eyes turned to her, Alexander's fragile body beside her, a dead man at her feet, and blood dripping from her hands. Richard stormed in, fury in his eyes. Caught in the act again, he growled. First poison, now murder. Guards, seize her. No! Elena sobbed, pointing at the syringe fragments. He was killing your father. I saved him. But the guards didn't listen. They wrenched her away as Alexander's weak voice tried to break through. His lips parted, whispering a single word before he slipped into unconsciousness again. Trust her. The screen fades to black. With Alexander comatose and Elena branded a killer, can she prove her innocence? Or will Richard bury her once and for all? The hospital walls shook with shouting as Elena was dragged down the corridor, her wrists bound in steel cuffs. Guards shoved her forward, their grip merciless, while Richard Kane walked behind, his face twisted with cold triumph. She killed a man in my father's room, Richard barked to the press swarming outside. My father's life is in danger because of her. From this day, Elena Rivera is nothing but a traitor. Flashes from cameras lit the night as headlines erupted in real time. Widow maid turned murderer. Billionaire's life in peril. Elena's reputation was shredded before the world's eyes. Inside the ambulance that transported her to police custody, Elena pressed her forehead against the cold window. Her heart shattered, not just for herself, but for Alexander, slipping further away, surrounded by vultures. At the mansion, Richard wasted no time. He summoned the Kane board members, presenting himself as heir. My father is weak, and the empire cannot fall. Effective immediately, I assume control. Anyone who opposes me sides with a criminal maid. The room erupted in applause, but behind the cheers, whispers of doubt lingered. Alexander's loyal physician kept silent, his eyes burning with secrets. Back in her holding cell, Elena sat in darkness when the sound of footsteps approached. A folded slip of paper slid through the bars. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The note read, "If you want to save him, meet me at midnight, Old Chapel." Her pulse raced. The same handwriting as before. The same mysterious ally. Could she trust them, or was this another trap? Before she could decide, Richard appeared outside her cell, smirking. Enjoy your last night of freedom, maid. Tomorrow, I'll see to it you're tried for attempted murder. And when you're gone, my father's empire will finally be mine. Elena stared back, eyes blazing. You may own his empire, Richard, but you'll never own his truth, and I'll make sure the world sees it. Richard's smirk faltered, just for a heartbeat, before he stormed away. Midnight came. Elena, desperate and defiant, slipped from her cell with help from an unknown hand. She followed the winding path to the old chapel on the mansion grounds. Candles flickered in the darkness, illuminating a hooded figure waiting for her. The figure spoke, voice low and urgent. Elena, there's something you need to know about Alexander's illness. He isn't dying naturally. He was poisoned, with a toxin only one man controls. Elena's heart nearly stopped. Who? She demanded. The figure pulled back his hood. It wasn't Victor. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone she never expected, the Kane family's most trusted physician. The screen fades to black. Has the doctor come to save Alexander, or to finish the job? The chapel doors groaned shut behind Elena as the physician's face emerged from the shadows. Dr. Warren, the Kane family's loyal doctor for decades, stood before her, his expression torn between guilt and urgency. Why are you here? Elena demanded, her voice trembling. You've been at Alexander's side this whole time. If he's poisoned, why haven't you stopped it? Dr. Warren sighed, his hands shaking as he held out a small vial of black liquid. Because I was forced to give it to him. This poison, it works slowly, mimicking illness, invisible to most tests. By the time anyone notices, the body is too weak to recover. Elena's stomach twisted. Who forced you? He hesitated, glancing toward the darkened stained glass windows. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, he said, Richard. The name cracked through the air like thunder. Elena staggered back, rage flooding her veins. Richard is killing his own father? Dr. Warren nodded, eyes glistening. The board wants a strong leader. Richard made me promise his father would never recover. If I disobey, he'll destroy my family. I had no choice. Elena's fists clenched. There's always a choice, and if Alexander dies, Richard wins. Dr. Warren's gaze softened. That's why I brought you here. I can give you the antidote, but it isn't complete. The final ingredient is rare, kept in a private vault beneath the Kane estate. Without it, Alexander won't last another 48 hours. Before Elena could respond, the chapel windows shattered. Black-clad men stormed in, armed and ruthless, Richard's enforcers. Kill the girl, their leader snarled. The doctor comes with us. Candles extinguished in the chaos. Elena grabbed a broken pew leg and swung wildly, fighting for her life. Dr. Warren was dragged toward the door, his screams echoing. Elena! He shouted, flinging the small vial into her hands just before a guard slammed him into the ground. Protect it with your life, it's the only chance he has. The guards closed in, their blades glinting. Elena clutched the vial to her chest, her back pressed against the altar. Her heartbeat thundered as she realized, one wrong move, and not only she would die, but so would Alexander. Just as the leader raised his sword to strike, a gunshot exploded through the chapel. The man fell, dead. From the shadows, Victor stepped forward, pistol smoking, a wicked grin across his face. Did you miss me, maid? He drawled. Because it looks like you need me more than ever. The screen fades to black. With the antidote in her hands, Richard tightening his grip, and Victor back in the game, can Elena survive long enough to save Alexander? Elena's wrists burned against the iron shackles as she was dragged into a lavish underground chamber. Gold chandeliers lit the room, but its beauty only deepened her dread. On the throne sat Damien Cross, Alexander's rival billionaire, smiling like a king who had already conquered. So, Damien drawled, sipping crimson wine. The poor widow maid who wormed her way into Alexander's heart. Tell me, Elena, do you know why your beloved master lies dying? Elena glared, her chains clinking as she struggled. Because of snakes like you. Damien laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. Correct, it was me. I orchestrated every detail, his poisoning, the betrayal of his allies, the collapse of his empire. And Richard? He's nothing but my puppet. Elena's blood ran cold. Richard wasn't the mastermind. He was the pawn. Damien leaned closer, his eyes glittering. But you're different, strong, resourceful, and very, very useful to me. So here's my offer. Betray Alexander, and I'll set you free. You'll have wealth, protection, even power. All I need is your loyalty. Signed in blood. A silver dagger clattered onto the table beside a parchment contract. Elena's heart pounded as guards circled. She could almost hear Alexander's shallow breaths echoing in her memory. Tears stung her eyes. She whispered, If I refuse? Damien's smile turned to ice. Then you'll rot in chains while your precious Alexander dies. Her hand trembled as she took the dagger. The parchment glowed faintly under the candlelight, an unholy pact. With a sharp breath, Elena sliced her palm, pressing blood onto the contract. Gasps filled the room. Wise choice, Damien said, clapping slowly. But behind her tear-streaked face, Elena's mind screamed with silent defiance. This isn't surrender, this is survival, and when the time comes, I'll burn his empire to ash. The screen fades to black. Has Elena truly betrayed Alexander, or is she playing the most dangerous game of all? Damien's mocking laughter echoed through the chamber as Elena's blood dried on the contract. You've chosen wisely, he said, sliding the parchment into a gilded box. Soon, You'll thank me for tearing Alexander down." Elena lowered her head, letting tears streak her face. "If I'm to serve you, then prove I can trust you. Give me the cure. Let me be the one to end him myself." Damien's eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "Ah, fire in your veins. I like that. Very well." He motioned, and a servant brought forth a crystal vial glowing faintly blue. One drop of this in his veins could restore him. Or, if delivered differently, he smirked, it could kill him faster. Elena's heart thundered as she accepted the vial, bowing low to mask the fire in her eyes. "I won't disappoint you." That night, chained guards escorted her toward her quarters. But once the door shut, Elena moved fast. Hidden in her dress was a bent shard of metal she'd snatched earlier. With a prayer, she picked at the lock until her chains fell silent to the floor. She ran through the labyrinth of Damien's estate, dodging patrols, her pulse screaming in her ears. By dawn, she had slipped into the forest, the vial clenched tightly in her fist. Freedom burned in her chest, along with the knowledge that she had stolen Damien's greatest weapon. Meanwhile, at the Kane estate, Richard stood before the cameras, grief painted across his face like a mask. "My father fought bravely," he announced, his voice trembling just enough to sound convincing. "But the great Alexander Kane passed away last night. May the empire mourn its king." Gasps erupted across the world. Headlines blared within minutes. "Alexander Kane, dead." Far away, Elena skidded to her knees, clutching the vial to her chest as she stared at a newsstand. Her vision blurred with tears. "No," she whispered. "I'm too late." The screen fades to black. Has Alexander truly died? Or has Richard staged the greatest lie of all? Rain poured as Elena staggered through the back entrance of the hospital, soaked, exhausted, and trembling. Every corridor echoed with whispers of Alexander's death. Guards had thinned, believing their king was gone. It was her one chance. Slipping past the shadows, she reached the private ward. Her breath caught. Alexander still lay there, pale and unmoving, but alive. Machines beeped faintly. His chest rose, barely perceptible. Richard's announcement had been a lie. Elena's hands shook as she drew the glowing blue vial. She whispered, "Please, God, let this work." Carefully, she injected the cure into his veins, watching the liquid pulse like light beneath his skin. For a long moment, nothing happened. Tears welled in her eyes. Had Damien tricked her? Then, Alexander's fingers twitched. His chest rose deeper, his lips parted with a ragged breath. "Elena," he croaked, eyes fluttering open. She covered her mouth, sobbing. "You're back. You're alive." But joy quickly curdled into fear. Before she could explain, Alexander's gaze hardened. "What's happened? Where is Richard?" Elena's tears fell harder. "Richard declared you dead. He's taken your empire. The board, the world, they all believe he's the new king." Alexander's fists clenched weakly against the sheets. "My own blood. On my throne." Elena reached for his hand, but Alexander pulled her closer, whispering urgently, "Then you must leave. If Richard learns you defied him, you won't live to see tomorrow." A sound at the door made them both freeze. Footsteps, voices, guards. Elena's heart pounded as she realized Richard would soon discover Alexander had awakened, and she was the one who saved him. The screen fades to black. Alexander lives, but his empire is gone, and Elena has become the most hunted woman in the city. The city blazed with banners declaring Richard Kane, master of the empire. Board members swore loyalty to him, the press glorified him, and the people mourned Alexander's supposed death. But deep in the underbelly of the city, Alexander Kane breathed again, hidden in a crumbling safe house with Elena at his side. "You shouldn't even be walking," Elena scolded softly as she bound his wounds tighter. Alexander's eyes, though weary, burned with fury. "Richard sits on my throne, my father's legacy. He believes I'm weak, but I'll make him choke on his crown." For the first time since his awakening, Elena saw fire return to him. Plans sprawled across the table, maps of Kane Enterprises, lists of allies, whispers of board members secretly doubting Richard's rule. Side by side, Alexander and Elena plotted not just survival, but vengeance. Nights stretched into days as they worked together, their bond deepening in the shadows. Elena laughed for the first time in weeks when Alexander clumsily tried to cook their meager supper. He watched her with eyes that lingered too long, his guarded walls slowly crumbling. Late one night, as rain pattered against broken windows, Alexander's voice broke the silence. "I trusted no one, until you." Elena froze, her heart hammering. "Alexander." He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "I can't deny it any longer. I'm falling for you, Elena. Even if the world brands us enemies, even if it kills me, I choose you." Her breath caught, her eyes glistening. For a fleeting moment, the Empire's ruins faded, leaving only two souls bound by fire and fate. But before she could answer, the window shattered. Smoke bombs rolled inside. Masked assassins stormed the room, blades flashing. Alexander grabbed a pistol, shoving Elena behind him. She screamed his name as the first assassin lunged, steel glinting under the pale moonlight. The screen fades to black. With love confessed and blades descending, can Alexander and Elena survive the night? Or will Richard's assassins end their rebellion before it begins? The safe house was no longer safe. Smoke and fire filled the air as assassins clashed steel against Alexander's defiance. Elena fought alongside him, hurling objects, clawing for survival, refusing to abandon the man she had once served as nothing more than a maid. Suddenly, through the chaos, another figure emerged. A young man, tall and cold-eyed, his resemblance to Alexander unmistakable. "Michael," Alexander's voice cracked. "His only son, the heir to his empire. You're alive." But instead of embracing him, Michael lifted a pistol. "Alive, yes, but not yours anymore. You clung to your throne and forgot me. Richard gave me what you never did, respect, power. I choose him." The betrayal slammed harder than any blade. Alexander staggered, grief flashing in his eyes. "Son, don't do this," Michael sneered, cocking the weapon. "It's too late for fatherhood." Gunfire erupted. Alexander dove for cover, returning shots, but his weakened body struggled to keep pace. Assassins pressed in, Michael commanding them with ruthless precision. In the frenzy, one assassin drew aim, not at Alexander, but at his exposed chest. Elena's eyes widened. "Alexander!" she screamed. Time slowed. Without thought, she hurled herself into the line of fire. The bullet tore through the air, slamming into her side. She crumpled against him, blood staining the faded fabric of her maid's uniform. Alexander caught her, fury and fear colliding in his veins. "Elena, no, stay with me. You can't, don't you dare leave me." Her lips trembled, a faint smile even through the pain. "I'd rather die by your side than live without you." Sirens echoed faintly in the distance, allies finally breaking through the chaos. But to Alexander, the world had already shattered. The camera lingers on his trembling hands, pressed against Elena's wound as her blood soaks through his fingers. Elena lies bleeding in Alexander's arms, her fate uncertain as his only son stands above him, gun still raised. The gunfire quieted. The assassins lay scattered. Michael retreated into the shadows with Richard's forces, leaving Alexander kneeling in the wreckage. But Alexander didn't care about empire, betrayal, or war anymore. His entire world was cradled in his arms. Elena, her breathing shallow, her maid's uniform soaked crimson. "Elena, stay with me," he begged, his voice breaking. "I'll get you help, I swear. You saved me before. You can survive this too." Her trembling hand rose, brushing his cheek. Her touch was feather light, yet it silenced him more than any battlefield. "You had billions," she whispered, her voice thin as glass. "I had nothing, but all I ever wanted was you alive." Tears blurred his vision. Don't talk like this. You're not leaving me. Not now. Her smile was faint, bittersweet. Then, live. Live for me. Her eyes fluttered shut, her hand slipping from his face, falling lifeless against the blood-stained floor. For the first time in his ruthless life, Alexander Kane broke, not as a billionaire, not as a king of empires, but as a man who had lost the only person who had truly loved him without cost. Rage boiled beneath his grief. His son had betrayed him, his brother had stolen his throne, but Elena had given everything, for nothing in return. Alexander pressed his forehead to hers one last time, whispering, "Your sacrifice will not be in vain." Then he stood, his figure silhouetted by the dawn breaking through shattered windows. His clothes were torn, his face streaked with ash and blood, but his eyes burned with a new fire. He would reclaim his empire. He would avenge Elena. But more than that, he would honor her memory, not with greed, but with redemption. Alexander walks back into his empire, alone, carrying her memory like a crown of thorns, ready to rise again, but never whole, for the only woman who truly saved him is gone forever.